Now, I don't know about you, but I believe that we have one chance at this wonderful thing that we call life, and we don't get any do-overs. Once the one chance is up, once that expires, there's nothing that comes after that. That's how I see it. One life, one chance in this world that we know of. Now, I said that to say, in this world, while you're here, there may be some things that you want to enjoy. There may be some luxuries in life that you look at and you say, man, I would really like to have one of those. And I personally think that you should be able to take advantage of whatever that thing is, take it, possess it, enjoy it while you have time, while you're here on this earth. Now, of course, you'll need to be able to put yourself in a position so that you can afford, so that you'll have enough money to buy, purchase the item that you want, the thing that you want. Now, here's how I see it. I want a $130,000 car. And I'm not an impulsive buyer at this stage of my life. I understand that when you're buying a $130,000 car or $50,000 car, a major purchase like that, you need to take your time. You need to do your research. You need to learn about the car, and you need to have a plan as to how you're going to pay for the car. At least how I see it. And if you don't have that, then maybe it's not time to make that type of purchase. I want to tell you specifically what I am going to look at, what I'm looking at when it comes down to my finances. How do I determine that it is a good decision for me to purchase a $130,000 car? What metrics do I look at? I'm going to take you inside of this video and I'm going to show you that and break it down. But more so than anything, I want you to look at this video and understand that there are no limits for you unless you set them for yourself. Now, I think most people would agree that buying a car is not necessarily a good investment as it pertains to your money appreciating over time, you gaining money on the investment that you make. Because when you buy a car, shortly after you purchase it and drive it off the lot, it goes down in value pretty significantly. But at the same time, the car is getting you from point A to point B, so it has some value. But if we go out and make a $100,000 purchase as compared to a $5,000 purchase, the car still gets us from point A to point B. So it serves its purpose regardless of how much money you spend on it. So the more money you spend on a car, then the worse investment you're making when you really start to look at it. But this is not about whether it's a good or bad investment. This is about what you want, because some things are not always going to be good investments. And you have to look at that and say, okay, well, how am I looking on the good investment side of the house? We don't just jump up and make a decision like this and go and put $130,000 at stake when you don't have the other part of your life, that investing part of your life, your retirement taken care of. So this is how I start looking at this car. I priced the car out with all of the options that I wanted, and it came to about $130,000, $125,000. So what I said then was, okay, so now how are you going to pay for this car? Are you going to finance the car? Are you going to pay cash for it? What's the deal? So what I decided to do was to say, hey, you know what? I want to pay as much as possible on this car. My goal is to save $100,000. If I don't get to $100,000, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to get the car, but I want to get to $100,000 so that I can come on the lot with $100,000 and give them $100,000. If it's $130,000, then I'll finance $30,000 for a couple of years, pay that off and be done with it. But the goal is to take $100,000 to the table. The reason why that is because there's no way I would go in and finance the bulk of a $130,000 car. That just doesn't make financial sense to me. And to pay an interest rate on that kind of money makes even less sense. So that's out of the question. If I have to finance the car, if I have to finance the bulk of the car, then I wouldn't get it. If I had to go in and say, you know what, I came up with $20,000 or $30,000, there's no way I would get the car. $100,000 is the goal. That way, in a couple of years, 1 year maybe, I'll be the owner of the car. I look at ownership, not rentership. I'm not into paying for things for a prolonged period of time. Best case scenario is I'll pay cash for this car. Next up, I had to reach into my Dave Ramsey's bag of tricks. Dave Ramsey is a financial guru. He provides excellent information Excellent advice. I happen to think that if you listen to Dave Ramsey and follow his advice, it could help to change your life. With that said, Dave Ramsey has a rule as it pertains to cars. He says that if you're buying a car, you take a look at the value of the cars that you have. If those values are more than half of your annual income, then you should not buy the car. He also says that if you're buying a new car, the only way you should buy a new car is if you have at least $1 million in net worth. So once I made sure that those areas were covered, I continued to move on with the buy. Now next, I have to admit, I had to compromise a little bit on this one. Initially, I had said that I wouldn't buy this car unless I'd already had my house paid off. And then when I started looking at my house and how much I had left, and then I'm looking at how close it is for me to buy the car, I realized that I might not have the house paid all the way off before it's time to purchase the car. So I said, you know what? I'll go ahead and get the car without paying the house off first, and then I'll go back and start paying the house off after I've purchased the car. But I was thinking, as I've been getting closer to purchasing this car, once I save up $100,000 and I only have about $85,000 left on my house, it's going to be hard for me to say, let's go ahead and get the car and still having that 85. I might just say, I'm going to put that money on the house. But then again, I probably won't because I really want this car and really am looking forward to it. Now, what would have shut this purchase down altogether is if I had to adjust my retirement savings at all. If I had to adjust that in any kind of way, there's no way I would get this car. Retirement savings, for me, that's not at any way at all negotiable. That's always going to, be allocated a certain amount of money. And if that happens to be affected by what I'm doing, then what I'm doing cannot take place. Retirement is number one priority. Now, the last thing I decided to take a look at was my overall net worth. I believe that if you're getting a car and that car is more than 10% of your net worth, then you need to reconsider. Maybe that's not a purchase you should make. So if you're buying a $100,000 car, you should have at least $1 million of net worth. That's at least how I see it. Now, another thing that I want you to be mindful and aware of is that this is your life. You have your life to live. You have your decisions to make. So you make the best decisions for you. Don't let anybody else make the decision for you. It's your life. It's your decision. How I look at it is my life, my way, and I'm willing to live whatever the consequences are. That's what I wanted to share with you today. I certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you want to learn more about the freight broker business, I'll leave a free link in the description. It's my 5-video series titled How the Load Movement Process Works. Gives you a chance to come into the office with me, watch me while I move loads, talk to shippers and carriers. That way you can get a better understanding of how the business works before you come into it. And then if you want to know more about how to transition from a part-time freight broker to a full-time freight broker, I'll leave a free video right here. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top because the bottom is much too crowded.